Hello, thanks for coming to walk with me today. Walking at 1.8 miles per hour. And we are a little past mid-December. So if you're someone who celebrates Christmas, then hopefully by now you have all your gifts purchased and wrapped, or at least partially through your wrapping, because that always ends up taking more time than we think it's going to, right? Like I've had wrapping sessions, we'll call them, where I'll wrap a few gifts and then I have a pile or new stuff comes in and then I let my husband do some of the wrapping. He's a much better gift wrapper than I am. I'm better at writing the name tags, we'll say. But, in the end, it all gets done and people rip through the paper anyway, so I guess it's not that big of a deal. However, my sister-in-law is a beautiful gift wrapper. Like, her stuff always looks so good. So it's hard to show up with my gifts looking like a bare minimum wrapped well and hers looking so good, but we all have our talents, right? But anyway, today we are here to chat about the book series ACOTAR. In the last episode, we talked about Court of Thorns and Roses, which is the first book in the series, and today we're going to talk about A Court of Mist and Fury. And if you have seen anything about these books on TikTok or maybe YouTube or anywhere else, you might have heard book 2 is often a fan favorite, and I can definitely see why. Like, super big events that basically change everything in the series takes place in this book, and it's just like a really good story. I will say the beginning of it was a little slow for me, kind of like the first book, but to me the first book took like quite a while to grab my attention. This book I was already like engaged with the book, and it was just like a few chapters in and then it got really good. But again, this series is by Sarah J. Maas or Maas. I'm actually not sure how to say it. Just like last time we put that disclaimer, I might not pronounce everyone's name or locations correctly. Doing the best I can do. I feel like it's really hard because you hear people out in TikTok world or YouTube world say things a certain way, or you say it your own way in your head. You get stuck in that. But anyway, this is a fantasy romance new adult novel. So obviously we have some of the same characters. Again, in this book, we have Feyre Archeron, and she is who the story is like told from. It's her perspective. And we have Rhysand, Tamlin, some people we're going to meet that's referred to as the inner circle. And that includes Mor or Morgan, Cassian, Azriel, and Amren. And another important character in this book is Iantha. And let me just go ahead and let you know, spoiler alert, we don't like her. And Lucien is also here as well. You don't see as much of Tamlin and Lucien as you did in book 1, but they do still make appearances in book 2, quite a few of them. In this book, Feyre is really starting to grow into her role as a powerful High Fae, and she starts trying to embrace her new life. If you remember at the end of the first book, she was mortal or human. She died because Amarantha lied and did not keep her end of the deal, and to bring her back to life, she ended up becoming High Fae. So she's trying to adjust to this new life, and Tamlin is like afraid for people to know some truths about her and basically just wants to keep her locked up. You refer to the first book as being reminiscent of Beauty and the Beast, and I guess this book's kind of like Tangled. Like, poor girl is locked up in a tower and they don't want to let her out. Now, I realize Tamlin wants her to be safe, but like, he really goes too far. But anyway, we see a lot more of Rhysand in this book. like a lot more, and we're here for it. And just as a reminder, he is the High Lord of the Night Court. And basically, you get to see their relationship there, as in Rhysand and Feyre. Rhys and Feyre. Their relationship's going to change a lot in this book. You're going to learn some stuff about the two of them, and you might change your mind about him depending on how you feel going into it. Tamlin, unfortunately, really continues being like possessive and maybe a little manipulative. And Feyre just starts to notice they don't align on their views. And that really drives a wedge between them. And eventually, you get to meet the inner circle. And a big part of that is Morgan. And she's Rhysand's cousin. And they're very close. Then you have Cassian and Azriel. And they are Illyrian warriors who are now part of, it's kind of complicated, but they're in the Night Court. And they've known each other, like the three of them, Cassian, Azriel, and Rhys. They've known each other since like childhood, grew up together, and they're really tight. And then Amren is not exactly a fae or a high fae, but she's in that form. But she's I don't know that they really know. I don't know that they really know where she's from. But she's very powerful. People are afraid of her. And she's really loyal to the Inner Circle and the Night Court. So in this book, we get to see a new place, a magical place. If you've seen any TikToks about this book, it's certainly been brought up. And that is Valaris. And it's just this beautiful secret city, like art and magic, and it's something that all of Prythian, which is, where all the courts are, not everybody knows this place exists, and it's very protected, it's very sacred, it's very awesome. You will fall in love with this place. And you also get to learn in this story about Illyrian culture and like the thing about the wings, and you get to learn more about like the upbringing of some of the characters and what they had to endure there. Of course, since Rhys is a big part of this, you're going to be in the Night Court, which it is and isn't what it seems, depending on who you are and where you're staying. But it has its beauty, of course. And then you're also going to learn about the Cauldron and a potential war that's coming up. And let me just go and tell you, it ain't good. So this book, again, starts back off in the Spring Court. Feyre is now high fae, trying to adjust to this new life. She's having like all these nightmares. It's not going well for her. Like, she's basically having PTSD from all the stuff that went down under the mountain. And Tamlin he doesn't know how to help her, basically. He instead becomes very like overprotective and controlling, and eventually like abusive, and like it just ain't gonna work, basically. But despite that it ain't gonna work, Feyre's agreed to marry him. And that character, Iantha, she is a high priestess, and she is very involved. I can't remember how she like showed up out of the blue, but she's very involved and trying to make this wedding super over the top, even though that's not what Feyre wants. But Feyre like really trusts her believes in her and like uses her as guidance to try to like, you know, come into this new world, this new life for her. Well, you'll learn later that you can't trust Diantha, but that's a problem for later. So basically, all these things happen. Feyre really starts like questioning, am I doing the right thing marrying Tamlin? Blah, blah, blah. She has this bargain with Rhys from book 1, and he hasn't called it in yet, which is kind of odd. Now she's about to get married, so like really, if she gets married to Tamlin, is she actually going to go and spend time with Rhys? Well, the thing about that little tattoo, that tattooed bargain, is kind of like a window into each other's thoughts. And as Feyre's walking down the aisle, really unhappy, not wanting to get married, Rhys can sense that or hear her thoughts about it, and he shows up, and there's famous little lines. Anyway, he shows up and takes her away right before she can get married, which of course has Tamlin furious. I mean, of course it does. Who's going to be happy about their bride being stolen away? But, you know, Feyre don't want to get married anyway. Like, she has hard times coming to terms with that, like that it's actually true for her. But, you know, she's grateful. She'll be grateful later. So, yeah. So now Rhys comes together and takes her away to the night court. And I feel like I remember her being like super concerned it was going to be this horrible place, like under the mountain where she already has PTSD from, because that's what it's modeled after. And she gets there and it's a little bit beautiful. And she's like, say what? You know, and she's going to meet more. And those relationships will evolve. So as she's discovering the night court, she gets introduced to Velaris, which is the city of starlight, and it's just this magical place that some people have access to. You have to have a way to get in there. Basically, not anyone can just get in. Not everyone knows it exists, but magical, beautiful place. Safe place, because not everybody knows about it. And she has to meet with the inner circle, which is more Cassian, Azriel, and Amren. And basically they're the ones who are running everything in the night court, and making sure that Velaris is safe, all that good stuff. And Feyre is super apprehensive to meet with them at first, and I'm sure they feel the same about her. And of course, over time, they develop relationships, and just kind of watching them go through the motions, or not watching, but reading, you know, you watch in your head as you read. And yeah, that's a really funny and sweet experience, and should be had by all. So basically, Feyre ends up like girl staying at the night court. She's made her decision. She sent a little note to Tamlin. She's like, I'm done. I'm here. Move on with your life. I don't remember what the note says, but basically that's it. And she's been very broken. She lost a lot of weight, the book says. She doesn't like know who she is anymore. Like, girl is struggling, needs some therapy. You know what I'm saying? And slowly, being in this new location and with new purpose and all of that, she starts to discover her own power as a high fae, and really starts to like build up her self-esteem again. And she like realizes, hey, I'm a badass. You know what I mean? So that's good. And I don't want to give away something super important in case you haven't read it, but she finds out a little secret about Rhys, and it's so important to the story, and it's so good. Anyway, at the end, some real bad stuff happens. I mean, of course, Tamlin is heartbroken. His fiance has up and disappeared. right? And said she's not coming back. And like, I don't think he believes she really meant that. I think he thinks she's held captive. And from his point of view, like, they're in love and he loves her and he wants her back. So unfortunately, he makes some really shady deals with the king of Hybern and everything goes to poop. And the book ends with some real tragic stuff going on. And basically it sets stage for war. And that's what's going to get picked up in book 3. It's a doozy. If you haven't read the series, I highly recommend that you do. I just wanted to give a brief overview without too many spoilers. There's a lot that happens. These are very long books, most of them. And this one is just so good. Like, you just, I mean, it's a little predictable in some ways, but like, that's fine. Like, a little predictability never hurt anybody. Like, you kind of see some things coming. There's also a lot that you might not. But anyway, it's definitely a good one. I definitely recommend you check it out. Thanks so much for walking with me today. See you next time.